A boy laid awake, staring at the darkness above him. The common fears and anxieties of death, failure, and loneliness flooded his mind like a hurricane, making it impossible to sleep. In fact, sleep frightened him. Total darkness and sedation for 8 hours. It was death, just not forever. He longed desperately for the sun, the savior of his nights, to rise above the horizon and bring light to that terrible darkness. But soon, as they always did, his fears slowly tired and lulled him into a deep sleep. He woke up in a dream. He stood on the peak of a pine tree-covered mountain, staring off into an ocean sunset. A golden ray of sunlight casted a bridge across the pearly blue water like a pathway to heaven. Then, just as he thought it could not get any more beautiful, a woman's hand gently grasped his shoulder. He turned, and a young woman with wavy, shimmering brown hair was staring at him. She wore a long white dress, possessed skin as flawless as a diamond ring, a body as pristine as an afternoon breeze, held the calmest and most welcoming smile, and eyes that stoned him down to the very essence of his heart and soul. Like two white clouds on a bright summer's day, the whites of her eyes surrounded two beautiful chocolate-brown irises, and in the center there existed two dark tunnels. Seemingly terrifying and lonely, these pupils mystified him as to why such a horror would exist within something so utterly angelic. Frightened, he backed away and asked her, "Who are you?" She tilted her head and calmly answered, "I am everything you have ever loved." Confused, he replied, "Then why, when I stare into your eyes, there is a horrible darkness?" She shook her head and frowned. She said, "Because everything you have ever loved is in danger. I will die soon, and so a deep sadness, an impenetrable darkness, lies within my heart and soul. What is everything that I've ever loved, and what is this danger?" She gave a solemn nod and explained, "Everything you have ever loved is all that exists and all that shall be created until the end of time, and the danger, the darkness that lurks within, is the force that desires all of everything to be sent into oblivion, creation to cease its existence, and time to end. You've seen everything you have ever loved, but you casted your eyes away at the thought of the darkness. Can I show it to you? Can I show you the force that desires oblivion?" Curious but frightened, he nodded. "If I show you this darkness, you will have no choice but to put an end to it. The sight of such evil will condemn your soul with a horror so great that you will be brought to your knees in tears and agonizing screams. Upon this you will wake up with one desire and one desire only, to bring light to the darkness." She had him look deeper into her eyes. Then he saw himself standing on the same mountain, but the forest was covered in flames. Bodies lied everywhere, and the ocean water was now blood. Tears ran down his cheeks, and he dropped to his knees screaming in agony. But eventually he went quiet. Indeed, he felt his soul being drained of all its life. Desperate to stop this horrible evil, he pleaded to the woman, "How do we stop it? How do we save you? Oh, why must this happen?" She smiled and calmly replied, "I'm afraid that I have no answer for that. But what I do know is that you are the only one that can save me." "What? No, I can't save you. I'm not strong enough. I'm just a kid." She nodded and said, "Then I guess I will have to die." Both her eyes went entirely black, and a heavy stream of blood flowed from them. She collapsed to the ground. The boy kneeled beside her, screaming in an enraged terror. Then, just as she was about to die, he woke up in a sweat, and with a new determination to save the world. From that day forward, he did absolutely everything he could to protect the force of creation and love that existed in the world. He went to a university and learned of philosophy, engineering, politics, and various other disciplines. He traveled the world to learn about other cultures and ways of life. He was drafted into the New World War, seeing friends die and millions of innocent people slaughtered. He was held as a prisoner of war for many years, suffering from starvation, pain, and social isolation. When he was finally released and returned to the world, he saw his nation devastated by the war and in a position of great political unrest. But the man smiled in the face of such strife, for he learned many things about life, love, and suffering in his education, travels, and his experiences of the horrors of war. So he did what any aspiring world saver does. He wrote. It was not much longer until he obtained a law degree. Then through his writings, he attracted many followers with his vast political, spiritual, and philosophical knowledge, eventually winning political positions. Working his way up, he finally found himself as the president of his nation. Consequently, he eliminated poverty, perfected healthcare, expanded innovation in education, improved public mental health, and significantly reduced crime and unemployment. Nations and peoples from around the world began to riot and rebel so that they too could have such a society of freedom, innovation, and prosperity. And so the man ruled the world, molding humankind into a utopian society. For many years, he thought himself as an enlightened one, who did not fear death, failure, or loneliness. He was content with all of life's emotions, and though he was the ruler of the world, happily chose to live in a small, one-bedroom, one-bathroom hut, unmarried and alone. No longer fearing sleep, he would fall into a deep, dreamless sleep every night for years on end. One night, after giving a State of the World address on television, he went back to his hotel room where he was staying and looked into the mirror. He saw that he had grown very old and wrinkly. Remembering the dream he had all those years ago, he smiled and said, "I did it. I saved everything that I've ever loved." Tired and content, he went to bed and fell asleep. To his surprise, he woke up in a dream, that very same dream. The sun and the ocean were just as heavenly. A woman's hand gently grasped his shoulder, and he turned around to see that familiar angelic face smiling back at him. In an explosion of joy, he approached her and shouted, "I did it! I saved you! But he stopped dead in his tracks and could not speak another word, for he noticed her eyes. An impenetrable darkness still lurked deep within. She was still, after all those years, in danger. He failed. He did not save her. He could not save her. And so he fell to his knees and cried out in horror, resentment, and failure. "I thought I saved you. I did everything I could. I spent my whole life protecting you and healing you, but nothing. You're still the same as you were. Why? Why have I not saved you? Why did I fail?" She held out her hand, and the man took it. Pulling him to his feet, she walked him over to the edge of the mountain, and they looked out at the sunset. "You did not fail me. In fact, you vastly succeeded. For I do not measure success in accomplishing the task at hand, but rather with the improvement of the self. There will always be another task, my friend, and it seems you've done well." He looked down at his feet with tears clouding his eyes and said, "But the darkness it's still there." "The darkness will always lurk within me. Everything you have ever loved will always be in danger, forever and until the end of time." A bit confused, he looked up and asked, "So you lied to me? I couldn't have saved you." "There is no saved or unsaved. There is only saving or lack thereof. There is no pain without joy. There is no evil without good. And thus I showed you my darkness so that you could shine your own light upon it. I told you that you were the only one that could save the world because in your shoes, your body, your eyes, you are really the only one that can save it. The only person you are in control of is yourself. And so you are the only one that should put the responsibility of saving the world upon. And what did you do? You took the full responsibility of all the world's pain and suffering and stopped at nothing to end it. I will never be saved. The darkness will never leave my eyes. However, I shall forever grow more beautiful, and the darkness forever darker. This pain shall always make me stronger." The man paused for a moment to contemplate. Then he said, "You will always need to be saved." She nodded and said, "Yes, I will always need to be saved, no matter what you do, for my goal is to reach absolute perfection. Yet I will never accomplish that, and so I am left constantly striving for it. Every second I become stronger, wiser, and more beautiful, and in this infinite brightening of my light, the everlasting improvement of myself, the darkness will forever grow darker and darker until the end of time." But why? Because, my friend, not even the darkness likes itself, so even that helps me grow brighter. There's only growth, for the only constant is change, and growth is change. But change may only occur if there is struggle. Light can only exist if there is darkness. We need each other to survive. So I say to you this last thing: thank you. She approached him, and they kissed. Her light then shined brighter than all of existence, and the great king died, a smile resting on his face as he laid there in eternal darkness. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Thus is Newton's third law of motion. Indeed, for every push forward, there is a push backwards. For every death, there is birth. For every act of love, there is an act of hate. The constant interaction of all things remains forever balanced under the eternal laws of reality. As such, it is the nature of the human being, the conscious observer of all things, to question and analyze such laws. And so, though Isaac Newton's laws of motion have changed humanity for the better, the idea that every action creates an equal but opposite reaction is not, by any means, new. The symbol of the yin and yang originates as far back as the 4th century BCE. If you're unfamiliar with the symbol, it is a circle containing one black swirl, the yin, and one white swirl, the yang. Within the black swirl, there is a white dot. Within the white swirl, there is a black dot. The yin lives within the yang, and the yang lives within the yin. To be yin is to be darkness, passivity, and the feminine. To be yang is to be light, activity, and the masculine. The sunlight is yang, the shadow behind you is yin. To push is yang, to pull is yin. To live is yang, to die is yin. Without one, there is not the other. With one, there must be the other. We know great good only because we know great evil. We know great evil only because we know great good. Thus are the teachings of Taoism, a Chinese philosophy that originates from the ancient texts of the Tao Te Ching, written by Lao Tzu somewhere between the 6th and 4th century BCE. The philosophy puts a great emphasis on kindness and modesty, the eternal balance of opposing forces, and following one's own nature. The Tao, often pronounced Tao, is translated to mean the path or the way. However, this path is an eternal path, much like the concepts of destiny and God. However, it is not to be confused as being destiny or God, for destiny and God have names. Yet as expressed in the first verse of the Tao Te Ching, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Indeed, the Tao is all that exists and all that does not exist. It is all that does and all that does not. It is all that moves and all that stays still. It is both destiny and God, and not destiny and not God. Thus it cannot have a name, for it is eternally everything and nothing at the same time and in the same respect. However, in a more practical sense, the Tao is the natural flow of existence. To follow the Tao is to follow the eternal path. Consequently, that which does not follow the Tao will inevitably come to an end. The young man becomes old. Yet, the old man cannot become young, and so he dies. The Taoist sage follows their natural instincts, stays modest and kind to all they meet, and listens and observes to all they encounter. The Taoist sage follows their heart. With this, Taoism emphasizes that the universe as it is has always and will always be absolutely perfect. And so, if one follows their heart, sees good and beauty wherever they go, and understands that everything is in its right place, they will find peace. For instance, beauty only exists because of ugliness, and thus ugliness is just as perfect and special as beauty. More specifically, the Tao Te Ching states, being and non-being produce each other. The difficult is born in the easy. So, the Taoist sage lives openly with apparent duality and paradoxical unity. The sage can act without effort and teach without words, nurturing things without possessing them. He works, but not for rewards. He competes, but not for results. This concept of being and non-being is especially emphasized in the Tao Te Ching. For example, a cup is only useful because of the empty space inside. Likewise, a pen is only useful because the ink can be emptied out of the pen and onto the empty paper. This paper, then, is only useful because it was blank. If you keep desiring more, you will always be poor. If you desire nothing, you will always be rich. If you desire intelligence, you will feel dumb. If you desire strength, you will feel weak. And so, the Taoist sage keeps in mind the eternal balance of all things. Or as quoted in the Tao Te Ching, know the strength of a man, but keep a woman's care. The Taoist sage balances the forces of yang, that which is masculine, and the forces of yin, that which is feminine, within themselves. If one can accomplish this, they may more easily follow their heart and flow with the way of the Tao. To flow with the way of the Tao is to be like water. As quoted, the supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to. It flows to low places loathed by all men. Therefore, it is like the Tao. And so, to follow the Tao is to be like water. Water is reflective, and thus one always sees themselves within it. Water nurtures all living things without trying to, and so it is worshipped. Water is formless, and therefore it is invincible. Water follows the path of least resistance, and thus it is never lost. You cannot step into the same river twice, for it is constantly changing, yet it remains eternally the same. A river will flow with the same effort at the top of the mountain as it will when it enters the sea. Or as written in the Tao Te Ching, a tower 9 stories high starts with 1 brick. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Be like water. Thus is the way of the Tao. Its wisdom teaches humanity of the inherent perfection that lies within the existence and non-existence of all that is and all that is not. With that, if one knows this, they may then balance the forces of yin and yang within themselves and follow their heart towards the path of least resistance. With that, I leave you with the 54th verse of the Tao Te Ching as translated by Wayne Dyer. Whoever is planted in the Tao will not be rooted up. Whoever embraces the Tao will not slip away. Generations honor generations endlessly. Cultivated in the self, virtue is realized. Cultivated in the family, virtue overflows. Cultivated in the community, virtue increases. Cultivated in the state, virtue abounds. The Tao is everywhere. It has become everything. To truly see it as it is. In a person, see it as a person. In a family, see it as a family. In a country, see it as a country. In the world, see it as the world. How do I know this is true? By looking inside myself. If you're working on creative works but can't find good background music or beats, just visit diagrambeats.com for low-cost beats and background music of all types. Additionally, if you want to learn more about Taoism, follow the links in the description. The last link presents a YouTube video in which Wayne Dyer reads the Tao Te Ching. But of course, the greatest teacher of the Tao is the river stream, the cool summer breeze, and the singing of birds. After all, if one speaks of the Tao, they do not know the Tao. If one knows the Tao, they do not speak of it. So, listen, learn, and above all, follow your heart. Thank you for listening.